It's time for Recipe of the Day. You know how when you're walking around the grocery store, sometimes something catches your eye? That happened to me a little while ago when I noticed pork steaks in the meat department. Yes, they were labeled pork steaks, and they were these really big, maybe 1 inch thick cuts of pork meat. And I was curious about why they weren't called pork chops, like what's going on here. And so I, of course, went home and did some research. I will say actually what also caught my eye is that they were really inexpensively priced. I think this whole pack of like 2 big pork steaks that probably feeds 4 people was like $5. So I was like, hey, what is going on here? What are these pork steaks? Why are they so cheap? And I did some research, and then I had to go back and buy some and start testing to make them perfect because they're really cool. So first off, pork steaks are different from pork chops. Pork chops usually come from the loin. They can be boneless or bone-in, and they vary a little bit depending on like where exactly they're coming from, but that is essentially what they are. Whereas the pork steaks are coming from the shoulder. Now, they are sometimes called pork collar steak, pork shoulder steak, or blade steak. So if you've seen any of those, that is what we're talking about. And they also can come boneless or bone-in, supposedly. My store has only ever had them bone-in since I've started looking for them. Now, like I said, these are fairly large. At my store, they tend to be about 18 ounces each. That's 1.5 pounds. So one of them definitely feeds more than one person. It's not like a steak portion where it's for one person. You know what I mean? And I think the other thing that I will say about this that's important to note is that these are made up of both the lighter pork meat and the darker pork meat. And so it's really a little bit tricky to cook them. They remind me a little bit of those country style pork ribs that I've told you about before, where if you slow cook them, the darker meat ends up luscious and beautiful, but the lighter meat ends up like dry and overcooked. And if you cook them just for a short time, you end up with the opposite, right? Where that darker meat that really needs that time to break down is a little bit chewy, whereas that lighter meat is just right. So I think because of that, a lot of the recipes that I've seen for these and doing my research have been like slow braising them for a couple of hours. And you can absolutely do that. Actually, I will put the link to those country style pork ribs in the show notes for this podcast episode, because if you do that to them, they will be perfect. And I'll probably do a recipe for braising them like that at some point. But I really like these as an idea for a weeknight because they are so inexpensive and like feed a lot. And they just seem like just the right thing for that. So I wanted a quicker preparation. So I really did my best to test ways to make them that is not a 2-hour braise in the oven. So really what we're doing here is maximizing that lighter meat. It's going to be like pork tenderloin, kind of like nice white pork meat. And the darker bits are just going to be a little bit chewy, but there is quite a bit of fat and marbling that when we sear it in the pan gets a little bit crispy and, you know, it makes up for it. It's so good. So this is how I like to cook these now for like weeknight quick dinners. You're going to start by preheating a large skillet. I use my really, really big cast iron skillet over medium-high heat. I've told you about this thing before. It says that it's a 12-inch skillet, but it really means 12 inches across the flat bottom, and it is heavy. Like, I need both of my hands to pick this thing up. I am obsessed with it. I use it all the time. I'll put a link in the show notes for this one too, because you need to check it out. If you don't have something this big, it is a wonderful tool to have in the kitchen. Okay, so you're preheating whatever biggest skillet you've got over medium-high heat. While it's heating up, you're going to sprinkle those pork steaks on both sides with some salt. You don't really need anything else at this point in it. In fact, anything else that you add might burn a little bit. Garlic powder, that kind of thing at high heat can burn. Little salt, you could do some pepper if you wanted to. Once I'm done telling you how to cook these, I have a little idea for you for some little bonus flavor at the end that I think you're going to love. Okay, so you have seasoned those pork steaks, and then you're going to add some oil, 2 tablespoons to that big skillet, and swirl it around to coat. It's going to start shimmering right away because it's already been preheating. And then add 2 pork steaks to that. They're about 1 inch thick, and you're cooking them for 6 to 7 minutes per side. And that is going to get your internal temperature to about 140. Using an instant read thermometer or a probe thermometer is a great idea here. Now, we've talked about this before. 145 is the new safe temperature. New actually for quite a while now. It's probably been 10 or 15 years since the USDA changed it from its previous 160 to 145. And so if you like your pork at 145, which is the newest standard totally safe temperature, you're going to take out those pork steaks after the 6 to 7 minutes per side when they've reached 140 degrees Fahrenheit on your thermometer. Then you let them stand for 5 minutes, they will raise up to the safe 145. That resting time also lets those juices inside settle so that when you cut into the steak, all the juices don't go running out. You want them to stay inside. Now, I always give this caveat though. If you grew up in a time when pork needed to be cooked to 160, like I did, sometimes that like ever so slightly pinkness to the 145 pork can be a bit off-putting. You're used to seeing that really well done pork. If that is you, it is totally fine. You're just going to cook it for a little bit longer. It's going to be about 8 to 10 minutes total more to get it there. You can take it out at 155 and it'll raise up to 160. And I know I've said this before too. If you are somebody who likes that pork well done, it's worth it to try lowering your temperature just a little bit sometimes. If you're usually taking it out right at 160 and it's raising up above that as it rests, try taking it out at 155, see what happens. And then, a few months later after doing that, try taking it out at 150 and see what happens. You might get used to it, and it really is juicier, more delicious pork. Once you do it and you like it and you're comfortable with it, it is going to make a huge difference to how much you enjoy your pork. Okay, I promised you a little something that's going to take these pork steaks to another level. What I like to do while they're cooking is to mix some softened butter with some Worcestershire sauce. I got this idea from our London broil recipe where I was trying to work the soy sauce flavor into the finishing of the steak instead of in the marinade. So we mixed some soy sauce with some butter and put it on the London broil after it was done cooking, and it was amazing. And that led me to trying this. So basically, it's like a quarter cup of softened butter to half a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. Mix it up, give it a taste, and it just has this like umami, tangy, really, really nice note. Once your pork steaks are resting, add a little smear of this on top. It's going to melt down into it and give that last bit of extra flavor. So good. Okay, I'll put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is April 8th of 2025. Another way to find recipes is if you head to cookthestory.com and use our search button, you might find it there too. So you can head there and search for pork steaks. The only issue with that is that I actually have two websites. I have Cook the Story and I also have The Cookful. And sometimes I'm talking about recipes from one or the other, so you don't know which one to go to. If you go to cookthestory.com/ROTD, those links take you to the right site every time. I'm sorry, I know that's confusing. I just have too many websites. Okay, I hope you have a great day. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, recipe of the day. Let's get cooking.